we want to be more orchestrated and we have to have this perfect environment for everything. And I know I find myself being guilty about that. I think people just really want to have a conversation. And so the more that you can do that on camera and build that confidence, I mean, if you feel that way, you actually are ready. You know what I mean? But you won't know until you just keep trying, because I was definitely not like this in 2020 when I started all of this.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. And oftentimes we need a restart in our business, or whether or not we have to adjust our goals, or whether or not we move into a new market. And my guest today relocated in a brand new market. And what I was most impressed with when I met her at an event is I got to see her YouTube channel and see her start doing videos and could not help but be inspired by her. And today I know you are all in for a treat as we talk about all things of video, positioning yourself as an expert, and even relocating and starting all over in a new market. Welcome to the show, Katherine Kennenberg.
Kranenburg.
See? I told her before the show started, I was like, I probably will mess up your name, but forgive me now, because I know that everyone that's listening or watching this interview on YouTube is going to get a lot out of today's call.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here and see you again.
I am so honored, and it took a while for this woman to get on the show. So I know you guys are all in for a treat. So first things first is how important, let's talk about brand for a second. How important is establishing a brand in a brand new market? Because you moved from where, like, give people a little bit of history of
Sure.
where you moved and where you're at today so that people can follow you and check you out as well.
Sure. So we moved to Boston area in 2017. It was like -10 degrees when we moved here to the Newton market, actually. And my husband's job brought us here, and our kids were elementary school age children. And we didn't have any roots here, had really started from the bottom up and rebuilt our foundation. And so about the time we were getting established and like finding our tribe, COVID happened, and we all had to regroup as the whole world did. And so I decided to go more into learning about the power of social media and connecting with people that way. I think that's where a lot of people actually took advantage of that time at home and learned something new. And so for me, that platform that I first started on was Instagram. And I felt like, okay, I'm a real estate agent who moved her business from the DC market to the Boston area. And if there's anything you don't know about New England, it is a small town. And so if you're not from here and you don't have roots here, the advantage or the opportunity or even the challenge of starting over can be huge and daunting. So I took that opportunity to really think about how can I move my business forward and how can I connect and make a bigger, wider community through social media. So I think that personal brand is super important when you relocate to a new market, and you can't really be boastful about that because there is an advantage of being sort of new and putting a new perspective on things, but there's also a lot of respect in learning how things go in the area that you live in. I was at a conference recently in Vegas, you know, the Forward event, and Rory Vanden started off, and he basically says that your a digitalized reputation is really what your personal brand is all about. Mm-hmm. And so doing business with people that have a personal brand, you're more likely to work with them, trust them, buy from them. And so anyway, That's a long-winded version of me saying personal brand is very important.
I love what you brought up because number one, how many of us have ever been scared to actually move or start over, even if it's the next city over in a new market and you moving different states, learning about that and establishing yourself? It isn't easy. So, first of all, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. And I love the fact that you continue to learn, right? Even though you took something up in COVID, whether it was Instagram, but like you continue to learn and establish yourself and pivot in your business because how many of us really thought 8 years ago that we were actually going to be doing videos or 10 years ago that we were going to do videos to get business in real estate? And I
Mind
think
blowing.
it's mind blowing, right? And I think sometimes as agents, we sometimes get stuck in our ways where sometimes getting stuck in your ways is not where future growth is. And you saw an opportunity, you decided to say, hey, I'm going to learn it and I'm still going to continue to learn it because there's so much to learn. And you went for it. So I want to say congratulations on that. You were
Thank you.
amazing at video. Obviously, I got to
I
see
think you're
your,
giving me a lot of credit, but I will say that conferences like RAVB and the Forward event, I've just learned so much more about what brand is really about. And it was through that that inspired me. Had I not started Instagram, I don't think I would have started YouTube. And there are people out there that really just went all in YouTube, and I commend them. Starting a YouTube channel is not for the faint of heart. And there's a reason why not everyone is doing it. But once you start it, you just got to keep going. And I think that's been one of the biggest things that I've learned because I literally started a year ago.
yeah. And you would have never thought that looking at your videos. And one thing that I would say is it's one thing to go to conferences, but it's also one thing to actually take action. And the woman that you're listening today took action based on even conferences that she attended and put it into place, no matter how scary it is. And I always tell you, you're amazing at videos. How do you actually come up with your ideas? Or for the one that's scared to even touch videos or that records 20 times like myself and go, I'm never posting this ever again. Like, how do you come up with your ideas? What advice would you give to the people that are listening?
So I also was one that would take 20 takes and think about how I was going to script it and what the lighting was and all of that, because all of those are really important. But I would say it wasn't like the first thing I thought of. Again, learning from people who inspire me on YouTube, and I think you've already heard of some of them, like the Ken Posaks or the Jason Cassidys or the Katie Days, just to name a few. Jason Pantana, of course, always talks about the power of YouTube. And I would say for me, I met someone at the Forward event that actually ended up being a YouTube coach for me. He's a young YouTuber, and I met him through actually Think Media, Sean Connell. And I said, okay, I'm going to go all in. And that's basically what I did. And I just really didn't look back from there. And it was through him that I really started off really strong. But at the same time, like I had to learn how to script and really look at my schedule and figure out how I was going to make all of that happen. And so scripting and B-roll and learning the dynamics of what makes a video engaging. It's not only just the content, obviously, but I feel like I've learned just so much in the past year. My first video I did, I think it took me like 2 hours to script it out, maybe
Yeah.
even longer. And then I had to figure out like where I wanted to go to do the video. It was a pros and cons video about living in Boston. For me, I just felt so comfortable with that because having moved here, I could definitely see the best and the worst, if you want to call it, the ins and outs. And that video was the hardest one, but it was also the most viewed one. And right now, I think it's over 10,000 views on my page. And I've only gotten better since that day, but it does take a village. I'm not going to take credit for just doing this by myself. I have an editor, I have someone who helps me with thumbnails. So it is a group effort for sure. And if you're going to start YouTube, you don't have to start off that way. But for me, I just felt like I don't feel like I have enough understanding. And so I just went all in and said, all right, let's get a coach.
Yeah. I love that again, that you went and got resources, you took action. And it's one thing to actually script, but it's actually another thing to be fully creative. But what I really want people to understand is sometimes you actually just learn by doing it. Your first video may go out there and it may have taken you 2 hours, but you're like, oh, I can do this better. But without that, without doing it, then you keep planning and planning because we all know those agents or those entrepreneurs that keep planning and planning, and then they really don't know what actually could go wrong because they've never actually done it,
Yeah.
right? Are there
Yeah.
any tools or apps that you would recommend that has made your life easier when it comes to putting your videos out there?
So I use a couple of them, again, learning just the right way to do things that worked for me and my team. So I use Slack channel to communicate with my editor. They're overseas. So that's just a really good place where we can communicate, share videos. There's also an option where you can huddle, which is like a video option within Slack. So I can basically call them overseas through this app and not get charged, I guess you want to call it that. And then we put a calendar together through monday.com. And so we could figure out like what videos were coming up. We could put in the scripts and where those were located in Google Docs. We could link up Dropbox, which is how I sent my videos. And then you could just figure out like what was on the docket, so to speak, what was in production, what's post-production, what I needed to do, what they needed to do. And so it was really easy to track. And so that was actually a big game changer for me because I was thinking, how are we going to know where we left off and who's doing what. And I was so involved with making the videos and scripting and figuring out the B-roll. I didn't really have a lot of time to figure out how this program was going to benefit that, but it was a really big, important thing. The other thing that I've learned about, and again, this is just evolving still to this day, is creator hooks. That's a really good one if you want to figure out what is a good hook for a title or description. And of course, ChatGPT is always a good thing to fall back onto if if you're a little bit lost for words of what you want to write out. So I do tend to use that. And the other thing about ChatGPT with regard to thumbnails is I've actually seen more agents use ChatGPT to create an image. So sometimes I'll send to my thumbnail editor, okay, here's something that I pulled up. Like one of my recent videos was how walkable is Cambridge? And so I just sent him some ideas about Cambridge and then the image just like created. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use this one. So I'm seeing a lot of people doing that. It's a trend that I guess is happening right now.
I love that because 2 years ago, when we had started our mastermind, I remember when I brought up Chat GPT and even some of the producers in that group, they were like, oh gosh, here goes Raquel with. And now it's like you almost have it as a browser because you can use it for so many different things.
Yeah.
And when you are at a writer's block or a script block, it could actually help you formulate your ideas. Right. And so, there are so many people that I think as they're listening to this, like, oh my gosh, Catherine, you got an editor, you got Monday, you got all these things, and I still have a real estate business. How do you constantly stay consistent to put out videos every single week, it says on your channel? Or like, how do you, even on days where you don't want to record?
Oh, I definitely have those.
You guys heard it here first.
Oh, I think even the best of the best have days where, sometimes my inspiration comes right when everyone's like gone to bed and I can be up because I love creating this. I love sort of building something from scratch. And so you're storytelling, right? And you're sharing your story about what it is that you've gone through or something that you think other people would want to know about and relocating to the area. and I can just really get into all the research and everything. So I'm sidetracked a little bit, but to stay consistent, I really try to put things on my schedule and block out that time. And again, sometimes the inspiration comes at night. And as a working mom and as a sport mom and kids in high school, there's a huge imbalance at times with that where I'm so excited about it that I can't go to bed. And then it's like 1 a.m, but I don't usually do that. I think you have to really block your time of where the inspiration comes from. I tend to be a morning person, so that's when I would do it. I would film on the weekends as well, so I could give it to my editor like on a Sunday, and then depending on the turnaround time and the extent of the video. So I first started off, I think, with 15-minute videos, and I've built up from there. And not everybody will start off with that, but I think that's how I've tried to stay
That's good.
consistent. As you watch your channel and you look at the analytics and see how people respond to that subject or that video. And so you just try to create more of that.
Yeah. So if somebody was looking, because you've been at this for a while and you've relocated, and if someone was relocating into a new market or starting a new channel, what would be 3 things you would actually do knowing what you know today?
In terms of starting a channel,
Starting a
or
channel, relocating, positioning yourself in a new
yeah.
market.
Well, first of all, go to my channel.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm joking.
Move me to
I
Boston.
had to do a
And
little
we'll put
plug
that in
in.
the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, go to my channel and actually start from the bottom and see how things have progressed. No, I think when you're moving to a new city, you've got to really, I think from a realtor's perspective, one of the things I think is really important is to really understand like the personality of the city and the neighborhood you're going to move into. And I think when you connect with a real estate agent, they can really help you figure out that probably faster through a series of conversations and questions. So I try to do that in also some of the videos that I do, because I think about what are the questions I get asked and what were the questions I asked when I relocated. So I try to put that in my videos. I think everyone has a different reference point. So if you're coming from like a state like Texas and you move to Massachusetts where the cost of living is so much higher, I think there's definitely a conversation around that. I tend to think Boston is like a big, small city, a mighty small city. And we're very much, it's very attractive to not only domestic or within the United States, but internationally. And
Mhm.
having worked and lived abroad before coming here, I really got to understand what people coming from abroad are looking for as well. I think that understanding the culture of people and asking the right questions, I think is really a huge part of it. And as far as like getting involved in the community, again, I think this goes back to everyone's talking about buyer agency interviews and that sort of thing. And this has always been something that's been part of my process is I really want to understand where they are coming from, what they love about where they live, and if that's still something that's important for them to have when they relocate. I feel like when we did that, that was one of the first things that I wanted to know. And honestly, one of the first things I did as soon as I knew we were moving is I reached out to the school PTO where my kids were going to go and introduced myself. And if you have kids, I highly recommend this. They are such a wealth of knowledge, and they probably know a lot more than maybe even your realtor because they're a parent too. They know the ins and outs, and plus they're connected with the school community.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interest that I have. So community is really important to me, and just building on that from coming from Washington, D.C., where we entertained a lot. Connecting with my community was really important. So I made that a super big priority when I got here. So I got involved in different organizations, not only ones that were dear to my heart, but ones that also stretched me a little bit. And I was sort of like, oh, I'm going to learn from this group,
Right.
not only just give of my time, but I'm actually going to grow with this as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question a little
Yeah, I
bit.
love the community aspect of it because I know that once you start to build, especially if you are talking about like how it is to move to Boston. right? Then you get to know so much about the community. Then you get to know the community people. It's like, how much information have you given out to a lot of people that are relocating just like yourself? I mean, even loved your intro on your YouTube channel. I was like, wow, if I was moving to Boston, like I could totally resonate with this girl because she was in my shoes. And there's so much fear when you're moving into a brand new state, brand new area.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you even said, go ask other people because sometimes when you're in it, you only see it one way. But what questions would I ask if I moved to a whole new city?
Mm-hmm.
I think those are great
Exactly.
ideas.
I would say the people who have found me through my channel, when I ask them, like, how did you come across my channel? That's a natural question, right? Because it can feel like a saturated market. And they all say, you're living what I'm going to be living when I move there. And so I found you super approachable and fun. And I think that's the other thing that is really important is to be relatable to people. And you're not going to relate to everyone. But I have also learned through this journey, like my style, that I didn't know really before. And I tend to be a little silly and a little unstructured, but I'm
But
also
that's,
poised, but not
yeah,
too stuffy. So I love when they give me the feedback that I'm approachable. That makes me happy because we all want to give content and share our stories and deliver a good value and make it comfortable for the people who are listening and watching you.
for sure. Where do you think today, as you watch different videos, because you say you get inspirations from different videos, or where do you think agents make mistakes when it comes to shooting content or videos?
I speak from my own experience. Try not to be hard on yourself
Mhm.
and go in it with grace because it is a huge learning curve. And if you're talking about YouTube, it is a long game. And I didn't realize how much I grew until actually I started preparing a little bit for this conversation with you guys because I watch and listen to people like the ones that have been on your podcast. And I was thinking, I'm just feel like I'm starting my journey and I've only been doing it for a year. So I get inspiration from not only just other realtors, but I like watching people who are vlogging. I feel like sometimes we want to be more orchestrated and we have to have this perfect environment for everything. And I know I find myself being guilty about that. I think people just really want to have a conversation. And so the more that you can do that on camera and build that confidence, I mean, if you feel that way, you actually are ready. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But you won't know until you just keep trying because I was definitely not like this in 2020 when I
Yeah.
started all of this.
Catherine, I'm so glad that you brought that up. You know why? Because here's the thing. I think, and by you saying that just reaffirmed like with the direction that I want to go. I think oftentimes we say you have to have the perfect mic, you have to have the perfect lighting. But I think now I'm seeing it more and more, even on social, even on Instagram and all these different platforms, is people just want real. People want to know that like they're a fly on the
Hmm.
wall in a conversation, just like us talking, going, what are they learning? What are they talking about? How's her channel grown? How is her relocating helps her business? All the things, right? It's like they
Yeah,
just want to be part of the conversation now.
I agree with you. And you know that you're creating good content when they engage with you. I'll tell
Mhm.
you, my first video that I was just referencing, pros and cons, there are certain ways and names here that I mispronounced. And so the engagement on the comments was like, oh, you're not even from here. You can't even say this name right. And I thought, yes, they listened. They heard what I said. So I had so many fun conversations with people who are very local. And let me tell you, Massachusetts take their localness very seriously. So if you relocate here, you definitely have to hit me up for how to pronounce certain cities and streets and towns because they are very prideful.
Oh, okay. I will definitely hit you up, and all of our community and listeners will hit you up for sure. So here's a question for you as like things start to evolve and you're constantly investing in yourself and with the rise of like digital marketing today, it's almost weird if you don't have a social media platform and you are in some type of business, especially even real estate, right? I think the first thing that people will do is they'll Google your name and then they'll see like what you're all about if you were going to walk into their house today. How has the rise of digital media or social media change the branding strategies for real estate agents, in your
I
opinion?
mean, I think it's huge. I look back at some of the proposals that I would write for clients when I was meeting sellers, and I look at what we used to focus on in terms of marketing, and it was very print heavy, print and ads and magazines and mailers, even though those are still very useful and important. Um, Everyone is, especially since COVID, everyone is online. And so I feel like with life also being so fast, you don't get a lot of time to make that connection because people are scrolling really fast.
Mhm.
If you look at like the millennials mostly, right? They are the hugest generation right now that are really into social media. I
Yeah.
think I'm a little bit older, I think. So my generation, I think they are actually really, I think they've actually adjusted pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just think if you aren't comfortable, you have to figure out a way of how to be visible somehow, even if it's just more of a static website. But there's always someone out there that's always been willing to help me. And so I would just say there must be someone in your market that can help you as well. And we all have something that we can give and share and grow. So I don't know.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. You know what? Like speaking of millennials and speaking of younger generations, my kids today, like they're rarely on Instagram, but like TikTok is so fast. I'm like, gosh, that is so fast on how they scroll, how they're downloading
Yes.
things in when we get on planes, and they're just so quick and they know when to stop the video, when to start and when to go to the next one, but they've retained a lot of it.
Incredible.
It's like
I
their new
actually
search engine.
I actually have my son help me sometimes. Like he set up some things for me today a little bit, but I'll have him come in here and help me set up a camera or check
Mhm.
in on something for me. And, he's sort of like, Mom, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watch how fast they take in information and absorb it. And I'm not going to say I'm a total fan of it, but yeah, it's shaped everything that we do right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge opportunity if used in the right way.
Yes.
And I always see all kinds of statistics around it. People, even ADHD, how people are just saying, even though you may feel certain things now and the way you're grouped at school, they're actually some of the most successful people in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think that with video and with you, it's the quickest way to, I think, establish a brand today. It's never been quicker than utilizing, like you said, print can take forever, ads can take forever, but
And
video,
expensive.
and it's very expensive, but video could actually have your audience, your community, your potential clients really get to know you even before they even meet you. I think there's so much power in that. So I want to ask, what is next for Catherine? And what are you most excited about that you're working on?
So I'm going to continue to grow my voice and understanding of like my style. I'm always evolving. I feel like I've gotten to a really good place just because I'm seeing more engagement and views. I think that the biggest thing that I'm excited about is sort of how AI is really going to be embraced in our industry. I'm a curious person, so I'm really looking into how that's going to change maybe video and the engagement. I also know that it's going to optimize a lot of our processes. And so I'm digging into a lot of that, and that's pretty exciting. It's taken me out of my comfort zone as well because there's a lot of things I don't understand about it. I think I am most excited about just seeing where this is all going to go and continue to just grow in what it is that I'm doing because I'm still learning all the time. And there's something new that's happening all the time. And so, yeah. And I would love to get my son involved in this more because I think honestly, that is our future right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a great talent for them and they already know so much.
You know what, Catherine, you've shared so much, and I love all the things that you dropped. Oftentimes, we tend to look at people that are 5 years or people that have been doing this for a really long time. Like you said, the idols of YouTube. And what I love most about you is not only are you real, you're authentic, is that you're a year in and you're still continuing to grow. And there's a lot of people that haven't even gotten started or even haven't touched like the consistency of doing videos, educational videos, or any type of videos that position their brand. So where can people connect with you? Where should they follow you? And we'll put this also in the
Yeah, so they can follow my YouTube channel, Move Me to Boston. And I also have the same on Instagram, Move Me to Boston. And yeah, so those are the two places. I started also, what was interesting is through this journey with my YouTube coach, he was like, hey, moving to Boston.com is available, right? And I was like, really? That's awesome. So I just took on that. And so you can find me also on Moving to Boston as well. And yeah, you can usually find me at my local coffee shop.
That's awesome.
So if you're local, and I'm usually walking my dog, so people stop me often at the farmer's market or in my neighborhood, and they usually know who I am. And sometimes for better, for worse, whatever it is. But I just feel like there's such a human connection here that you can make with social media. It doesn't always just have to be, and with regard to real estate, it can be about so many things. And I just find that the more that you can put out there and be in your community, whether it's walking down the street, being in local businesses, going in and out of houses, like people can really relate to you.
100%. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree with you more. And as we wrap up, there's always one question that I ask every single guest on the show is what's one thing you do to play bigger in business or in life?
I challenge myself doing things like this.
That is so good. I love when people get out of their comfort zone because there is a reason why we all play bigger. Catherine, I want to say thank you so
I
much for
love it.
being on the show. I want to continue to support you. You've been a huge inspiration to me, and I tell you that all the time. And I can't wait to keep seeing you play bigger.
Thank you so much. And you are truly an inspiration to so many people as well, Raquel. So I love your podcast and I can't wait to see where you go from here.
Thank you.
Thank you.